Even in the most difficult of economic times, it's still possible to develop financial independence. And not only can you continue to be resilient when things get tough, but it's also possible to thrive. And no, this isn't one of those videos where I'm going to tell you to spend less than you earn or to save or to do all of the stuff that you've already seen. This is about real financial independence. But before I get into it, my name's Nolan Matthias, and if you want to thrive financially, this is the place for you. So do me a favor. If at the end of this video you found it useful, insightful, and if it helped you change your perspective on financial independence, hit the subscribe button and hit the like button so more people like you can see this video. It helps me a ton when it comes to the YouTube algorithm, helping more people see videos like this, which in tough financial times are very much needed. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's discuss financial independence. And this is the no bullshit guide to being resilient. There is no fluff here. This is purely the lessons that I've learned over 2 decades of running a business. And like I said, dealing with some of the hardest financial times that anybody can face. And I'm going to share more in this video about my own personal story than I've ever shared with anybody. In fact, I'm going to share it with a whole ton of people, even though some of my closest friends and family members know very little about what has happened financially in my life. So how do you develop financial independence, and how do you continue to be resilient even in tough financial times? Well, there are 10 basic principles when it comes to developing financial independence. And it starts with defining success beyond wealth. And I will tell you from experience that when you attach your meaning to wealth, things get bad very, very quickly. When I finished university, I never thought that I would actually end up in the mortgage industry. Coming out of it with an economics degree, I thought I'd be an investment banker or a stockbroker. But at some point, I realized that when it came to personal finance, there was a lot of really complicated topics that the general public just didn't understand. And the one that I found had the most opportunity for me to help people with was the mortgage industry. But even though I started with the intention of doing as much good as possible, eventually I got sucked into this industry that is all about volume and how many mortgages you do and how much money you make. And that really defines your worth in this industry. And it became less and less about helping people and more about making the next dollar or selling the next mortgage or getting bigger mortgages. And in 2012, I got completely burnt out. And it was at this point that I realized that defining success and wealth was less about the actual dollars and more about all the things that went along with them, particularly the amount of value that I was able to create for others. And this led me down a rabbit hole of reading different books like Start With Why by Simon Sinek and Think and Grow Rich and The Richest Man in Babylon. And what I quickly realized was that wealth wasn't just about money. It was about having peace of mind. It was about family. It was about personal fulfillment. And it was about respecting yourself and knowing that what you were doing was doing good for the world. And when I realized that emphasizing purpose over things in all of my financial decisions led to a significantly happier life, well, that was when life really changed for me and my family. It led to a place where I no longer had to be worried about the amount of money that was coming in to pay the bills for an extremely insane lifestyle. And when that stress and that anxiety disappeared, which I'll talk about a little bit later, that was when I was able to really fulfill my purpose. And now every day when I go to work and make videos like this, I feel significantly better about myself than I would have if I'd just simply done more mortgages, got more cars, got more money, and had a bigger house. And in addition to that, prioritizing well-being led to a longer-term focus, a focus on what life would look like in the future, rather than just always focusing on what it would look like right now. And as a result, I was able to adopt a long-term perspective when it came to my finances. And I was able to recognize that financial success usually requires sustained effort over decades. Tony Robbins once said that people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a decade. And in my 20s, when I was constantly trying to make $500,000 a year, even though I was only making $100,000 or $200,000 a year, I was always disappointed in the fact that I wasn't able to reach my goals. But when I started to look at the long-term perspective and realized that setting goals over a decade or 2 decades would give me more bandwidth and more time to accomplish them, well, it allowed me to set higher goals that I would eventually reach, which ultimately culminated in us earning over $1 million per year. And once you shift into having that long-term perspective and you shift to having patience and perseverance, as opposed to wanting it now, 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 that is when you are able to build long-term lasting wealth. But having patience and perseverance isn't just enough. You need to be consistent and be consistent over a long period of time. Back in 2012, when I hired one of the best ad agencies in North America to do a rebrand for one of the companies I was running, my friend Todd, who is one of the most successful ad executives in history, pointed out to me that advertising is what you do at any given moment, and branding is what you do over decades. And when it comes to your personal finances, building wealth isn't about what you're doing today, it's about what you consistently do for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. This is why Warren Buffett is the single best investor of all time. It's not because he has the highest returns in history or the highest average returns in history. It's because he has had the longest amount of bandwidth to turn those returns into significant wealth. It's all about doing the things that work consistently over a long period of time. So when it comes to your personal finances, saving regularly, investing, and having prudent spending are the things that if you do over a significant period of time will lead to the best results. It's not about the quick flash in the pan or buying an investment and hoping it goes up tenfold over the next 6 months. It's about consistently saving, investing, and spending in a way that will guarantee the returns. Because when it comes down to it, personal finance is easy. If you do the basics, which I'm not going to cover in this video because they've been talked about in excess, then you will have almost 100% guaranteed results. I remember my mom, who was a banker for 47 years, telling me about the little old lady that went and picked up bottles and cans, deposited them into her account, and then had them moved into a mutual fund automatically as soon as the funds hit the account, who had over $1.5 million at the end of her life, which she was able to give to her kids. The irony is that her kids thought she was poor. They had no idea that she had been consistently saving basically bottle return money for the last 40 to 50 years and had saved so much that they were financially set for the rest of their lives. And when it comes to being consistent, that means developing financial discipline, which means you set a standard for how much you are going to save out of each and every paycheck. You never deviate from that. You invest your money consistently in things that you know will grow over time, and when you lose a little bit of money, you don't just go and sell, you keep doubling down and investing more and more and more. And you commit with all of your heart and all of your being to your personal financial standards, and you never, ever deviate. Much like my friend Craig Ballantyne made it his mission to become the most disciplined man in the world, you make it your mission to become the most disciplined person in personal finance. Now, there's going to be times where your financial demons pop up and try to convince you to stray. And this has happened to me so many times in my life. There's been times where I've bought expensive BMWs or Shelby Cobras or insane cars. The number of cars I've had in my life that are well beyond what I ever needed, practically at least, is insane. And every single time I bought one of those cars, it happened in a matter of 3 or 4 days because some little demon stood on my shoulder and said, "Hey, Nolan, that M5 is really cool, or that Shelby is really cool, or that Corvette's really cool." And I wasn't able to silence that demon, tell him to go away, and continue to be disciplined. And it wasn't just the nice car demon that got in my way throughout my life from a personal finance perspective. There was also the little demon that rationalized the expensive purchases as something that I needed when I really didn't. And it is so important for you to figure out what your financial demons are. That little voice that tells you, yeah, go ahead, spend that extra money, and find a way to suppress them so that they don't get in between you and your personal well-being. And the way in which you do this is to become your own personal advocate. Develop that inner advocate so that when those demons stand on your shoulders and say, "Hey, go buy that. It's a good idea. It'll be fine. You can borrow money to get it. You can pay for it later," that you are able to suppress that and say, "No, you know what? I don't need it right now. Maybe later, but right now, my well-being and my personal financial goals are more important than whatever fancy thing that is going to give me a whole bunch of dopamine because my friends go, ooh, wow, he bought that car that nobody actually really cares about." And then you need to take proactive steps to make sure that you are constantly improving your financial situation. Action is the antidote to anxiety. If you proactively manage your finances through budgeting, through saving and investing to reduce your financial stress, you will be significantly better off 10 or 20 years down the road. But if you have a lapse in judgment, it can be catastrophic. So you need to recognize that financial anxiety often stems from future uncertainties, and you need to understand that anxiety is a sign that you need to change something, improve something, or move forward. And I can speak from experience here because it's that exact anxiety that comes up whenever there is a major financial issue like the Great Recession or the pandemic that has led us to take another look at our business and has allowed us to grow every single time there's been a financial crisis of some sort that should have made our company shrink, especially when all the other companies in our industry were suffering when those bad things happened. You can use the anxiety and the financial stress that comes along with today's day and age to actually fuel your passion and fuel your desire to build rather than just to sit back, lean back, and not do anything. And most importantly, if you've already developed that financial discipline, you've been consistent, and you've done all of the things that you were supposed to do, well, when those scary moments like the economy collapsing or the pandemic happen, knowing that you have the money set aside to ride out the storm will with certainty provide you peace of mind that many others won't have. And when things get tough and there's adversity, embrace it. See financial challenges as opportunities, opportunities to learn, opportunities to grow, opportunities to make more money by changing your lifestyle, changing the business that you're in, or building and developing your skills. And in times where you've accumulated debt and it seems like there's never going to be an end to it, face those challenges head on. Get real about the situation, do everything you can to get out of it, and don't just sit there and go, well, I really need my Starbucks every week. No, you're in the situation you're in because of your bad habits, your bad financial habits. Face them head on, own them, and make the change. Because it's the change that happens during adversity that allows you to move on and grow to be a better person and ultimately be significantly more successful financially. You always have a choice to define a setback as a failure or as a lesson. And if you choose to see it as a lesson, the amount of potential that you gain as a result is massive. In fact, my friend and mentor Craig, who I mentioned earlier, and I were talking about this recently. We were talking about the fact that over the last 2 decades, I've earned more than $10 million. And at this point, I have very little of that left because of the poor financial decisions that I've made. But he was quick to point out that I had to lose that $10 million in order to understand how to make 20 million or 50 million or 100 million. Losing that $10 million was the price that I had to pay to learn the lessons that I can pass along to you and that will ultimately allow me to make hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars over the next decade. And I can tell you right now, with what we're building on this channel and what we're building going into the future in the mortgage company, I have complete certainty that in the next decade, we will have a $100 million company. But if I saw those setbacks as a failure and just continued to do what I was doing and learned nothing from them, well, I'd pretty much just have what I have now for the next decade and beyond. And by the way, a lot of that comes with a ton of financial stress. And perspective is important because there will be bad days. Days like during the financial crisis when people lost 50% of their wealth pretty much overnight. But understand that those bad financial days are simply part of life's seasons. And just like winter turns to spring and spring turns to summer, a bad day financially will eventually turn to a better day as long as you give it the time to recover. So you have to understand that bad financial times are temporary. As tough as it may seem right now, a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road, it will get better. And if you can just persevere and be consistent and develop your financial discipline over time, you will in fact come out ahead. In fact, in 2008, when things got really bad in the US stock market, I took it as an opportunity to develop my investing skills, my investing knowledge, and I was able to buy stocks and investments at pennies on the dollar, knowing with full faith that they would come back to where they were and eventually go well beyond that, as they have over the last 10 to 15 years. And it was my faith that things would get better that led me to do stuff like buy Starbucks at $8 and eventually have it go to $114 and be able to make a significant amount of profit over the course of basically 10 years. But without the faith that bad days will eventually turn into good days, you would simply just cash out of the market and not gain any of the potential returns that come with the normal seasons that just happen when it comes to money. And then last but not least, and this is the most important, is only focus on what you can control. In 2008, as the owner of a mortgage company, I couldn't control that lenders were stopping lending. I couldn't control that lenders were going bankrupt. I couldn't control that there was less money and less clients who wanted to get a mortgage. But what I could control was the efforts that we put in to get more clients, the efforts that we put in to build our brand, and the efforts that we put into building our company so that it was resilient even in the toughest of financial times. And unlike many of my competitors who are no longer in business because they leaned back thinking, hey, the economy's happening to me, I really have no other option than to just let it happen to me. We took the bulls by the horn and were able to grow our company by 40% in 2009 because thanks to a lot of the education that I received when times got tough, we were able to build financial resiliency, financial independence, and we were able to lean into the hard times. And that is the difference. When times get tough, you have two options. You can lean back or you can lean in. And it's the people who lean in that build financial independence, are financially resilient, and ultimately end up growing significant wealth over a long period of time. Now, all that being said, I make a lot of content on this channel about all of the things that are going wrong in the economy, but they always have a positive spin. I always talk about the things that you should actually be focusing on and why a lot of what you see on YouTube and in the news isn't really as bad as it's made out to be. And if you want to see a video on just that type of topic, make sure you check out this video. Make sure you check out this video right here.